Hi everyone and welcome to my channel and to this time-lapse version of a very spring themed Scottish landscape with a little girl and a lamb and some added cows. And this is done in soft pastel. I hope that you enjoy this speedy version here. If you do, then please do subscribe here on YouTube. And if you'd like to learn from the real-time tutorials, come and check me out over on Patreon. I'm working on pastel matte paper, using mostly unison pastels with a few others thrown in as well, a few Terry Ludwigs, a beautiful Mount Vision blue that's just up at the top of the sky, and it's the buttercup yellow shade of pastel matte paper that I'm using. As you can see to the left, this crop of my photo reference is really beautiful. The photo reference for this is a real stunner. It's what really attracted me to painting it. So much vibrance. And the overall themes aren't bad either. We've got that beautiful sky at the top. It's quite dreamy. And then this lovely Scottish landscape this time, with those cooler blues in the sky and those lush, vibrant greens below. And then, of course, we've got two main characters in the foreground. And they too are quite a colourful pair. So I was really looking forward to working on this one, something a bit different, with a slight touch of whimsy about it. So on my Patreon channel, I will go into a lot more detail. I will slow everything down and break it up into a longer tutorial series like I normally do. And so there will be several parts of interest, hopefully, starting with the sky. And then lots of other tricky little elements in this painting. The stone wall, as you will see soon, took me quite a while in relation to how long I spent on the painting overall. The stone wall definitely took me a long time. That was extremely tricky. And the piece is 16 by 16 inches, so it's not enormous. The smaller details, you can see the scale in relation to my hand here, so I knew that I was leaving things pretty difficult in terms of getting a likeness of the little girl because her face is pretty tiny. But I have painted many portraits like this where the people are further away within a landscape, and I quite enjoy the challenge of working on small faces. So even within a larger painting like this, you can have many other elements happening, and it can lead to the face of the person being quite small within the composition. So work has started on the stone wall. Probably not quite as laborious as actually building a stone wall, but not far from it, I would say. And I start with my black value. So in this painting, I did actually use quite a lot of black. Recently, I've been using other dark tones and still using black, but limiting my use of it more and introducing other darker tones. But in this painting, there's such sharp contrast in the lighting here that I did go for absolutely pure black in the darkest areas. So, for example, in between all the rocks, the darkest shadows, and I made use of the harder pastel sticks for the black, as I often do. It gives me a little bit more precision. I'm often putting the black values down first, as I tend to work from dark to light. So by using a harder pastel in that layer at the beginning, I don't fill up the tooth of the paper too much, and it's easily able to accept my next layers of colour. And you can see also that I'm picking up some pastel pencil. I certainly made use of the black pencil just to help me shape the lighter colours on the rocks. And then later on as well, you'll see that I use a load of pastel pencil to help me out with the smaller features on their faces and the other tiny details in the foreground. But I literally had this hurdle of a stone wall to get over first before I could even think about the little girl and the lamb. But in terms of my colour choices, I have put a lot of time into considering every element of the photo reference before I started. And I actually made a little video about this as well for my patrons, just explaining while I was putting together the palette of colours, because I often choose out a palette of colours before I start to work. In fact, I always choose out a palette of colours. And although those colours may change a little bit throughout the painting, I may dump some colours out of the box, I may pick up some extra colours, but what I start with is a good basis of the painting, and it means that I've put a bit of time into thinking about how I can create some colour harmony in the painting. But it's at this point in the painting where I decide to go back and make a little alteration to my background. Here you can see I'm adding a little fence that's actually in the photo reference, as I thought that the hill looked a little bit odd on its own, and I think that just adding the fence there and the two cows give us a sense of the perspective of the hill and some sense of how far away that is. So, as I often do, I share a lot of progress pictures over on Patreon as well as on my social media accounts. And I often ask my patrons for their opinions while I'm working on things, and it's so useful just to get a fresh set of eyes looking at something that you've been labouring on for too long. So it was really nice to get their opinions and to feel like I was going in the right direction by adding the fence and the cows. And finally I've made it onto the other side of the wall. I've got to conceal a little bit of the wall by adding those long grasses, which I think really helps. And after blocking in a little bit of the surrounding grass, I decide to make a start on the little girl. And of course, she's got vibrant coloured hair, and she's wearing some lovely vibrant tones as well, so she really jumps out of the painting. And I really wanted to capture all of those vibrant colours. Despite the scale of the portrait, you can see that I'm able to come in with my soft pastel sticks. I can drop a bit of pigment roughly into the right space, and then either using my fingertip or the pastel pencils, I can kind of move the pigment around a little bit, neaten up edges. But a lot of the work, surprisingly, on her little face, done with the bigger pastel sticks. And then you can see a lot of pencil here at work, just moving the pigment, making small alterations. And the same thing with her hair, getting those vibrant colours blocked in using the soft sticks. And then using the finer point of the pencils to kind of tweak it into place. So lots of lovely vibrant colours used in this painting. And for the pinks of her shirt, I'm actually using a couple of different brands. You'll see an Art Spectrum pinky coloured red pop up, and also a Diane Townsend pink. So pink is the colour that I have the largest range of brands within my pastel collection. And if you haven't seen it already, I've got a video on here all about pink pastels. Because for years I've struggled to get exactly the right pinks where I needed them. And so I did a large experiment where I bought a lot of different brands, different types of pink, and compared them all. And there are definitely a few from those that I bought that I've picked up several times since, and I'm most happy to have them within my palette. I'm using light lilac coloured tints here just to calm down the pink colours and add a bit of reflected light. So it's not all pink on the jumper. Bits of purple in the darker shadows and a lighter lilac tone as some of the highlights. And then bringing those lilac tones down into her trousers. So when I'm painting something like this, I'm not necessarily trying to get the clothing exactly the same colour as it is in the photo reference. Close is good for me, and what's more important is creating a little bit of colour harmony within the painting. So I'll bring some of the colours of the jumper down into the trousers and vice versa. And I went for a slightly different colour of blue for her turquoise coloured shoe. I brought the colour of the sky down onto her shoe just to continue that blue from the top of the painting down somewhere lower in the painting. So I'm constantly making little colour decisions that are hopefully going to add to the colour harmony within the painting. So I like to get clothing pretty close to the right colour that it is in the reference, because quite often these are the little outfits that are part of this memory. So it's not like I'm going to change her jumper to bright yellow or something totally different. But certainly the types of pinks and purples and the blue for her shoe, all of those colour decisions are made partly taking into account what colours have been used already. Can I repeat some of those colours that I've used already? And by doing that, that's going to definitely add to the colour harmony within your painting. So trying to repeat colours throughout the painting seems to be one of my main aims these days. So again, bringing in the pinks from her jumper on the warm pink areas of the little lamb. And then lots of those lilac colours. All of the colours really that are going onto the lamb have been used already somewhere else in the painting, whether it's the lilac earthy highlights on the stone wall behind them. And those same highlight colours there are also within the clouds at the top of the painting. So every part of the painting has some common colours, and that really helps, especially in a painting like this where there are a lot of different elements and a lot going on. Really helps to tie things together and to make it look a bit less disjointed, as can often happen. So the wool coat of the little lamb was really fun to do. Because it's not enormous within the composition, I knew that I didn't have to go into a huge amount of detail on the lamb. I can be quite suggestive with the coat. So putting down some colours as a base layer, and then adding the lighter marks over the top. So a very fun little tiny lamb portrait. But all of these colours getting repeated from other parts of the painting, and therefore hopefully making the little lamb really sit within its environment. So the final thing to work on was the grass at the foreground. I took a little bit of artistic license with this. You can see some of the brown patches within the grass in the photo reference, but I decided to really liven it up and continue those more vibrant greens right down to the bottom. I also didn't bother with too much detail right down to the bottom because, as you can see when you look at the painting, hopefully it all knits together nicely. I hope that you enjoyed seeing this come together. If you did, then please do remember to hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. And do go and check me out over on Patreon. I've got tons of real-time tutorials there, and this one will be coming out very soon. But thanks very much for watching this here, and until next time, happy pasteling.